Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of the Mission Matters Business Podcast, your source for all things business. My name is Adam Torres. You can follow me on Instagram at AskAdamTorres to keep up with my book releases, book tour schedule, signings, all that other good stuff. Always love to connect with you there. And as always, if you'd like to apply to become a co-author of one of my upcoming books, just head on over to the website, moneymatterstoptips.com, and click on Become an Author to apply. All right, so today I have Ashley Blake on the line, and she's founder over at Traverse Journeys, and she's a cultural consultant. Ashley, welcome to the show.
So great to be here. Thanks for having me.
So excited to get into today's topic, cultural competency. Why don't we just jump right in? Let's start with you just kind of defining that for the audience, what cultural competency means to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So cultural competency is this idea and ability to be able to see beliefs and ideas and values through not just your own subjective worldview, but others as well, so that you can communicate across those divides. It really has to do with cultivating awareness about your own cultural conditioning, like what you were grown up with, the beliefs and the values that were instilled at a young age through your family unit, through the country and the geography that you grew up in, through the cultural norms around that, and then building bridges around how we can communicate across those divides.
What kind of clients do you typically work with as a consultant working in cultural competency?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the context of business, we have quite a few different areas that we would talk about cultural competency in. A big one is entrepreneurs and executives, investors looking to up-level. We have startups and multicultural teams, expats on international assignments. You look at managers and teams on the front lines of cross-cultural interactions. That could be in, say, sales or marketing and development. What's really interesting about this is, like, in the past 20, 30 years, Pew Research did a study about the increased diversity of teams, and it's no longer optional. This is a business necessity, really. Diverse teams often perform better. They're more creative and innovative. They bring more value to the company. And the ROI is huge. You retain talent, adapt more quickly, can expand to new markets better. And in order to be culturally fluent, there really needs to be a root-level understanding of why people and places are the way they are. It helps you cultivate that internal awareness and expansive global mindset, and gives you real-life communication and situational tools. What I thought I'd do is just start a little bit. A huge cornerstone of cultural competency is self-reflection. So that means bringing awareness to your own values, and I mentioned cultural conditioning because you have to understand how it affects in your interactions and then how you're perceived. And it's really great with this to be curious, question your own assumptions, like assuming that everyone else communicates in the same way that you do. There's a number of tools that we can use in cultural competency, like in training. And because cultural difference comes into the workplace. So think of, say, hierarchy and authority, or formality and informality, the ways we might expect, but also like seemingly small things, like how people socialize at work, or small talk, or humor. So we can use these cultural dimensions and what we call value lenses and the familiarity with cultural norms to be able to be more effective in our interactions. So I'm going to give you a few examples. We use this term cultural dimensions to kind of define what we're talking about cross-culturally. One that might resonate and be really familiar with people is independence versus collective. This is a really classic example. So think of collectivist, meaning an interdependent society, defining itself in terms of like we rather than me. Individualistic societies tend to be pretty self-reliant. So think of like a lot of Western or Europe or North American are more individualistic, whereas a collectivist, you might find that in like Latin America or Africa or Asia. And you can think about how this might play out day to day in the workplace, even something as simple as going out to lunch. So maybe in America we sit at our cubicle and we eat our lunch and we keep working or answer some emails or something like that. Whereas maybe if you're in Brazil, you go out for 2 hours with your coworkers and you're building rapport and it's relationship oriented. So So it's really important to understand some of these dimensions when you're working with multicultural teams, whether there's employees in your office, whether you're going to build a relationship in another geography or location. Another one, for example, so right now I'm in Denmark, and here flaunting your achievements or your like long work hours is not really likely to impress like maybe it does kind of in the U.S. And there's a cultural dimension that we call masculinity. Not in a gendered way, but like a high score like the U.S. means a society is driven by competition, achievement, and success. This is really different for a feminine society where the dominant values are caring for others and quality of life, the crux being motivation, like wanting to be the best versus liking what you do. So, for example, if I'm giving a presentation here in Denmark, I might focus less on like achievements and like these narrow ideas of success and outcomes, and put a more broader range of benefits that would appeal to the audience I'm talking about, to the team, or the company.
That's awesome. And so for the people listening, what type of, if somebody's listening and they want to follow up, do you work with small companies, big companies, mid-size? Like, give us a little bit more there, because they're listening to this right now. They're in their office, they're in their car, and they're like, oh my gosh, we've been thinking about this, we've been addressing this, wanting to address this issue and not fall behind that curve. What kind of companies do you work with? Like
yeah, absolutely. So my specialty is in small teams. I work with teams of 6 people or less, or on individual basis. I do a really customized virtual training program to your locale and your specific challenges. So we set the cultural landscape, the context, we understand what the values are of you and your counterparts, and we use those tools for the business results you're looking for. And I do it all in live remote sessions. So we might work on really specific things like crafting a more effective email or carrying conversations that resonate with your partners or preparing for a meeting, in addition to the bigger philosophies and beliefs and values that are driving the interactions that you're having. And by doing this, it will give you kind of the tools that you decide what you want to do.
What is the typical length of engagement to kind of tool up a team? Is this a month engagement, 6 months, a year? I mean, just to give a feel for how long your process and program kind of takes.
Yeah, that's a really great question. So I work on a 6-month program. The first month we focus really intentionally on the team itself, building the foundation of values, understanding where the geography is, and learning about those specific countries too. I think it's really important to have that educational component. And then following that, we have more specific sessions to really address the problems or the situations that you're finding yourself in, doing a lot of almost like role play work so that you can have better answers and better questions and better elicit better responses from your counterparts when you're involved in, say, a contract or a difficult business decision or an important meeting.
I love what you're doing. I mean, it just makes so much sense. And as things become more and more globalized, and things like, so you're doing a lot of your consulting remotely, as you mentioned, online. And I just see as these teams cross borders, and you're working with different cultures on different functions that are now integral. It's no longer like, okay, we just kind of move some of the cost saving things overseas or somewhere else, depending on your line of business. Now, I mean, you're building these really strong teams across multiple nations or countries, and they're all integral parts. So I love it. I love what you're doing. I love that it's kind of gelling the as you mentioned, it's changing and making us reassess our value lenses in order to really understand how we're working and connecting with the rest of our people. So I love it. It's all great. So Ashley, last thing, if somebody's listening to this and they want more information or they want to connect with you and to reach out, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So they can find me at ashleyBlakeConsulting.com. There's all kinds of information on my program, on how it works, on kind of what the benefits are of doing cultural competency training for you as an individual or your small team. And then, of course, you can contact me through that.
Fantastic. Well, hey, Ashley, really appreciate you coming on the show today and sharing more about what you're doing and helping your businesses and your clients with cultural competency. And to the audience, as always, thank you for tuning in. Hope you got a lot of value out of this. If you did, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. If you're watching this on our YouTube channel, Mission Matters Business, don't forget to give us a subscribe there, but more importantly, leave us some comments on the video. I'd love to hear your thought process on the discussion today around cultural competency and what it means to you. Let's not let the conversation fade. Let's get some comments over there and engage there and take it to the community. And Ashley, thanks again for coming on the show.